All right, welcome back. So this week we have another great topic. So if you haven't been following along on Instagram or Facebook, we've been talking all about reactivities, dogs and reactivity, barking on leash, not really barking, but just dogs being reactive in general. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out on Instagram or Facebook, the posts and stuff, check that out. But today we're going to expand a little bit more and we're going to get to the good stuff and talk about how to train your reactive dog so that when you're on walks and stuff, or just in general, they'll be a little bit better because dealing with a reactive dog or having a reactive dog can be stressful. It can be overwhelming, but there are some things that you can do to make it a little bit better. So I just want to tackle a few of those things that you can try. So before I jump into a few tips to give you to work on with your reactive dog, I just want to say that if you have a dog that has bitten someone or what we call air snap, attempted to bite someone, or just say, you know your dog. If you think that your dog is headed in that direction, you'll be better off reaching out to a trainer or a behaviorist, depending on what the issue is. But definitely reach out to a trainer just to, so they can have an assessment to see what's going on. Because the things I'm talking about today are dogs that don't have any bite history or things like that. So you just want to make sure if that's your dog. I'm not saying that things can't be better. They can, but it just requires some additional training. So let's hop into it. So first things first, when we talk about training dogs, if you've been following me, I use only mostly positive reinforcement training. So when you're thinking about reactive dogs, you want to use training that's going to encourage them and reward the desirable behavior. So whether that's verbal praise, whether that's treats, you can use playtime, you can use toy. So any type of training that's going to build a positive association with your reactive dog. All right. So the first thing you want to do when I think about my clients and families with reactive dogs, when we talk about reactivity, ideally, the common scenarios are dogs being reactive on walks. That's the number one. And also the barking from the house. But I would say let's think about this in the context of your dog being on walks because that's the main one that I get calls about. Okay. So first things first, if you know that your dog's reactive, or even if they're pulling on walks, before you even go to on a walk or things like that, you want to make sure that your dog's actually calm. So one of the things that you can do is you can give your dog a Kong to work on, stuff a Kong, or you can scatter treats in a room and let your dog sniff for treats. So all the things I'm telling you is about mental stimulation. It's about sniffing because sniffing is very exhausting for a dog. Even going in the backyard and doing like a game of fetch and things like that, anything that's going to release the energy before they get outside. Because if you think about it, if your dog's reactive and they're going outside and all hyper and chipper and stuff on like that, it's better if they're a little bit calmer before they head out so they're not so reactive on walks. So what you want to do, every dog's different, and there's going to be certain things that your dog engages with that keeps them engaged longer. So whatever that is in your home, whether that's a Kong they stay engaged for 15 minutes, whether they search for treats for like 30 minutes, think about whatever they stay engaged with the longest, and that allows them to sniff and work their brain. And you want to do that up to like 30 minutes, even 30 minutes to an hour before you take your reactive dog out, just to calm them down a little bit. So just make sure you're using positive reinforcement. Yelling at your dog, getting frustrated with your dog, which I know happens, doesn't help the dog because it doesn't teach your dog what you want them to do. They just know that you're frustrated. Okay. So moving on to tip number 2. In our dog training world, we have something called counter conditioning. And basically that involves changing your dog's association with things from something that's negative with a certain situation to something that's positive. So for example, if your dog's reactive to other dogs, what you would do if your dog loves treats, every single time your dog saw another dog, you would feed him treats, right? And then you would stop. See another dog, you feed them treats and stop. So what ends up happening is your dog builds a positive association between seeing a dog and the treats and loving the treats. And so what ends up happening is if you do that every single time that you see a dog or whatever your dog's reactive towards, it could be people, it could be children. So I'm just using dogs as an example. You can start feeding them treats, and that way next time they see a dog or person, they'll be like, hey, where's my treats, instead of like barking or pulling or whatever they're doing. So definitely give counter conditioning a try. Another thing that I love working on, especially if you're not so comfortable with treating your reactive dog and walking at the same time, is an approach called desensitization. And that's gradually exposing your dog to a stimuli over time. Is in a structured manner so that they're slowly being exposed to their trigger or what they're, reactive towards. So what that means, if you're taking your dog out on a walk and say you're at a park somewhere, and you know that your dog's reactive towards other dogs, if you see another dog, basically what you would do is stay at a distance where your dog is not reactive. So for instance, say you start walking and you're in the park, whatever, and you notice a dog and your dog starts to bark or react or pull, you want to move further away until your dog doesn't bark or react anymore. And that will tell you the distance that your dog should be at, where they're okay with seeing another trigger, such as a person or a dog. And that's how desensitization works. It's just moving your dog away and slowly but surely moving them close and close to the trigger, which may be a person or another dog, until they get accustomed to, they're like, there's nothing, I know. And again, another tip that I'll throw in there, which goes right along with desensitization, is distance training, right? So keep your dog at a distance from whatever they are reactive towards. Just like I'll give the example, right? So say, for instance, you're afraid of spiders, right? If someone came and just from behind you right now and dropped the spider in front of your face, you'd probably jump back and be terrified, right? Or be reactive. But if someone came and just stood at the doorway about 20 feet away and was like, here, Pam, look at the spider, you'd still be kind of fearful, but it's further away. So you're kind of good, right? Unless they come closer, then you're going to start reacting. So dogs are no different. You want to move them further away from further away, keep the distance so that they're not reacting to things. Also, calming techniques, just like I mentioned, giving your dog something before you go outside to calm them down. So whether you can use aromatherapy too. I know they have those things, aromatherapy things in the store, lavender and stuff like that, that'll calm the dog. If you know dog massages, you can do that as well. And also, I always talk about this. Dogs pick up on your emotions. And if you're dealing with a reactive dog, I guarantee you that you may be a little bit nervous and stuff. You don't want anything to happen, right? So just make sure you check your emotions at the door, which means that if you have a reactive dog in a situation where you know your dog's reactive, you just want to take a deep breath. I'm always a big fan of, if you're on a walk and you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, just stop. Take a breather for a second, right? Just make sure you calm down, because all that emotion goes right down your arm to the leash of the dog. And even if your dog's not reactive, you could kind of signal them to be reactive by how you're feeling, especially if they're like, do, looking around and you see a dog before they do, or a person, whatever they're triggered towards, and you start pulling in on the leash, then the dog's like, wait, should I be afraid? So make sure you check your emotions a little bit. Make sure you're a little bit calm and things like that. And also another thing is you want to train your dog, far as reactivity reasons around distractions. I'm always big of, just walking away if you need to, but also you want to make sure you can get your dog's attention when you need, when they do see a distraction. So when you call your dog's name, like, oh, Fido, when you see another dog that they're reacted towards, they should be able to respond to you. So you just want to get, and I always say, practice recalls before on walks as you're walking, just to make sure that your dog's going to respond to you when it matters. So ideally, how you want to go about that, just simply, just how it sounds when you're walking your dog, call their name, and when they come back to you, give them a treat, right? And so you want to do that as you walk in, but then to add some distraction to that, say every single time a car drives by, or say they're reactive towards dogs. Let's use that example. And say, like, you start, you walk, generally just calling them back to you, giving them a treat. And then, say a car drives by. So anytime you spot anything walking by in a distance, you just want to call your dog to you, and give them a treat, just to make sure that they're responding, so that when you do see that dog they are reactive towards, you call them and then they'll stay with you, and then you can just continue giving them treats. So just remember to practice around distractions and things like that. And as always, if you didn't see the reel on it, I talk, scroll to Instagram, scroll to the page. We talk about walking away, because that's always another good thing to do, is just simply walking away, and there's a reel on that. And then last but not least, consistency is key. Consistency is key with working with reactive dogs, because it creates predictability. And I always tell folks, and when I'm training, like, you know what? If you never train your dog a day in the world, not a day in the world. If you never trained your dog at all, just by you going about your motions of everyday life and just doing things, they kind of catch on. And so you want to keep that predictability and routine, especially if you're dealing with a reactive dog who is fearful or anxious. Just them being able to predict the situations helps a reactive dog and makes it easier for them to cope with the situations. And so that even dwindles down to even going on the same walking routine with your reactive dog. So just so it can stay consistent. And also, not only the walking routine, try to stay consistent with the time of day you walk your dog, because ideally you're going to see the same people and things like that. But you also want to make sure as well that if you are dealing with a reactive dog or trying to manage one, try to walk at times where there's not going to be as many dogs or people or wherever they're reactive toward. Just try to go at a time where it's not as much going on. All right. So those are some things you can do to help your reactive dog to get a little bit better. Just in general. So just to, go over it, you just want to remember, use positive reinforcement training, make it a positive experience for your reactive dog. They're already reactive. So we want to try to make it positive for them. Try counter conditioning for your dog, changing their response from a negative association to a positive one, desensitizing your dog, starting at a distance where they're not really triggered and gradually moving closer to the thing they are triggered or reactive to. Distance training, just starting off further away and staying further away so they're not afraid. Calming techniques. And remember, I talked about using toys, snuffle mats, just anything before you go out on a walk just to get some of that energy out. Or when people come over, if your dog's reactive towards people, just to calm them down. And also training around distractions, practicing those recalls on leash and things like that. And just remember, consistency is going to be key with all this to make it all fit together. All right. So I hope you gained some good ideas of how to even get started with your reactive dog. And of course, if you have questions, always reach out. If you haven't reached out to me yet, if you have, you know that I'm highly accessible to answer any questions. As always, there's only so much I can do on Instagram, but I try my best. But if you want additional help or if you have questions, you can join Instagram subscriptions. $4.99 a month is not too bad. You can cancel anytime. I do bi-weekly live trainings in conversation. So if things are going on, I usually try to tackle the most common topics that I'm being called about. And so the big difference is more exclusive. There's a certain amount of people in subscription. So I am able to troubleshoot any issues that you may be having. It's like having a trainer in your back pocket. You'll see live trainings, more behind the scenes, more step-by-step things. So it's like really cool because it's like we're all like a little small community in there, and there's a group chat as well where you can post anything. We all help one another. So it's kind of cool. And the best thing is you cancel anytime. No one wants to be, stuck in a subscription. They don't want to be, not saying I want you to leave, but just check it out. And as always, if you haven't grabbed the Loose Leash Walking Guide or the guide to training a puppy or fearful or anxious dogs, you can always grab that. And then our podcast, Positive Dog Training Combo. So there's various different ways you can grab this content. Just figure out what's best for you. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Other than that, I will see you next week, and enjoy your week and the weekend. All right. Bye.